17 years ago, the United States of America split apart, causing one of the century's bloodiest wars that would shape the nation into what it is today. The divide was caused over the issue of whether or not slavery should be legal, or if African Americans should be freed and given civil rights. With so much at stake, the Union had to exploit their main advantages over the Confederate states, namely, their navy. The American Civil War was not only one of the most pivotal wars in American history, it is arguably the most impactful war in the history of naval combat. The technological advancements made preceding the war all accumulated into powerful warships unlike any that had been seen before. The previous standard for design for ships dictated for them to be large, sail-powered frigates that held as many cannons as they could. Although with the invention of the steam engine and explosive shells, the standard type of ship had to be replaced with something more up-to-date. Having small production capabilities and being completely blockaded by Union ships, the Confederate States needed advanced war machines to stand a chance in the war, prompting them to rebuild a sunken Union ship, the USS Merrimack, into an ironclad CSS Virginia. This new ship had iron armor that left it virtually indestructible to cannon fire, and the Confederate States hoped to use this ship to break the Union blockade that was crippling their economy. When news got to the Union that the Confederacy was building an ironclad ship, they had to come up with a design of their own. This rush to build a steam-powered and iron-armored boat prompted the Swedish-American engineer John Ericsson to design what is now known as the Monitor class of warships. This ship sat low to the water, reducing its profile and therefore reducing the chances of it being hit by enemy cannon fire. In addition to this positioning caused any projectile striking it to hit at a very shallow angle, increasing the chances that the enemy fire would just bounce off. After receiving approval from Congress, Ericsson went on to construct the USS Monitor, which would later see its first naval encounter against its Confederate counterpart, the CSS Virginia. After the CSS Virginia wreaked havoc on two wooden Union frigates, the USS Monitor moved to protect a third ship that had run aground. The two ironclads battled for hours until the CSS Virginia eventually retreated, although neither ship had sustained major damage. The USS Monitor had not technically won the battle, but this encounter proved to the Union and Congress of the ship's capability, which prompted the Union to build 35 more. These Monitor-class warships served as the workhorses of the Union's coastal warfare for the remainder of the American Civil War. The Union used their advantage in production and technology to dominate most of the Civil War's naval encounters, although sinking Confederate ships wasn't among their main goals. At the outbreak of the war, Union General Winfield Scott proposed a strategy referred to as the Anaconda Plan, which was adopted by former President Abraham Lincoln. This plan dictated that Union ships blockade the ports in Confederate states, crippling their economy by stopping their main export of cotton, although this cotton would later be used to armor Confederate ships. The Union blockade would also disrupt imports into the Confederate States, meaning that the Confederacy would essentially need to power its whole war machine with resources produced inside the states, causing a shortage of both iron and coal. The Anaconda would later stretch into the Mississippi River, giving the Union control and military presence inside the Confederate states, which disrupted the Confederate operations and transportation. The Union's absolute domination of the Mississippi River helped supply their soldiers, which led to the liberation of states like Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Tennessee. The Union also took advantage of the civil rights given to African American people in the North, which allowed them to be conscripted. Over 10,000 African American sailors served in the Union Army at the time of the Confederate defeat. The These sailors and their European American comrades received cargo looted from the Confederate blockade runners, which both boosted morale and gave incentive to effectively blockade Confederate ports. To overcome this vigilant blockade, the Confederate States constructed multiple submarines, including the first one ever used in war. Although they never carried cargo, they sunk one Union ship, the USS Housatonic. Although the Union had a clear military advantage over the Confederate States, by strategically utilizing their superior navy, the Union made the American Civil War a more decisive fight and saved the lives of many Northern soldiers.